that we've got to work on financial resilience. So that is data analytics at the moment. So what we're doing is doing some data assessment of what we spend, what we invoice, and just looking for any trends. And part of that included check. So what we want to do is just build up a picture of where the money's coming from, where it's going, and we'll focus testing further on maybe in time we'll focus on based on that. But as part of that data analytics, we've just shared the tool that we use to pull together data with officers so that they've got an interactive way of just accessing their financial data and it's provides work. So that's an advisory piece of work, but it will obviously help people on transactions. Workforce, we scoped for December and January. Now, bearing in mind that in terms of the workforce, it's essentially large, showing that's changing. So talking to officers, we needed to make sure that our work followed the appropriate economics of the establishment and policy. So that's why that firm is needed. But we do need to publish some workforce after for the annual period. Having said that, our testing of payments and testing of agency payments, which will, and that is actually included in our workforce review, will be done internally. So it looks slightly different to most organisations that have got those establishments on payroll rather than through there's over the page 12, under the heading governance, I discussed in some detail, maybe in the detail last meeting, assurance mapping. So given that we've got a new organisation and the links, it's sort of not that well defined in terms of some of the areas that have got to come on stream. We've got connections with the constituent authorities of the drivers. And we've got a number of players needing assurance, whether that's let's say whether it's land authorities, officers, whether it's government departments, whether it's the all of those assurance requirements are quite complex based. So the way that we plan to deal with this is when we take insurance mapping with officers. Now we've made a start using the information that we've got available. We now need to have discussions with key officers to further calculate that, and that will be a tool that we will use. Don't necessarily want to bring all this off plan through all the detail. But you know, we all want to be and certainly want to be fair and not being rude. So we're working on that. But what I have done in the report is just give you a one-page sort of open. This is sort of page 14. What I call the context map, just to differentiate it from an insurance map. And this is the place where you've got a little bit more detail about what the internal audit coverage is likely to be over the 3 years that we've projected in the plan. And alongside that, we've then got, and this isn't fully populated, it's work in progress, just to give you a flavour of where some of the external assurances may be provided, because there will be other people in this space. It's not just about internal audit, the external colleagues have a place on that. And then we've got what I call second line oversight. So, you know, there are other areas and mechanisms for delivering assurance other than internal audit. So we just need to sort of have that and view as the governance audit need to. So I hope that's helpful. If you want to ask any questions on that, then that's fine. And then under assurance mapping, if you go back to page 12, you just starting a piece of work on decision making, which is looking at some kinds of the Constitution and policy framework. And you'll see from the narrative I've included on there that we'll focus on sample procurements so far in the lifetime of this authority to understand the level of compliance and any issues, etc. around keeping kilns. So I've said here in the second paragraph that the audit's been scoped, supporting implementation of being completed. So by the next meeting, we should be going to the further.
I mean, Councillor Richard.
Sorry, Benita, just
yeah.
on that one, is there a weighting towards some more of the higher end? So that, you know, it's the bigger projects that we need to absolutely.
Yeah. So we will focus our sample using material, commercial material. But we also want to consider such a the wider compliance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, absolutely. I suppose at this stage in the life of people, we want to think about lots and lots, so we can possibly, you know, our sample might be a bit easier, and also our use of data analytics allows us to look at the whole population and trends, which goes back to the first piece of work I was talking about, the financial resilience. So the two do go hand in hand. Thank you. So that's all I'm saying. Any questions? I've already mentioned the internal audit chart.
Just in terms of the overall sort of workforce plan and particularly at the high levels, do we have yet a sort of an understanding, if you like, of the key director jobs and how and what progress is being made to ensure that they're in place at the right time? Because I know it's actually early days yet, but it's just point year 14, but I know obviously the mayors were actively involved in terms of developing and making sure. So it's really an outline organisational chart, so we can perhaps get a head around exactly what structure it's going to be. Do we have an understanding of that?
If I may share, at the executive board, chaired on the 20th of November, you'll be reports about organisation construction and grading framework. So those are in place to maintain. They will just be circulated out to those on the website. I can get those to you. There's an appendix to one of those which in which the mayor set out an indicative organisational structure, and I'll send you electronically to give you pretty very well the arrows are lost and the numbers lost, but I'll take an action to get that to you. So you will see that's happening. The mayor's instructed his officers to progress with the first line of recruitments, and the expectation is that they'll be in the public domain within the next week or so.
So we'll get about 3 or 4 and then director post advertised for Christmas, and then early January we'll get the rest that we've had just signed off at the exec board. Out in January as well, all job descriptions and then will be done tonight.
Perfect. Could you just make sure that we're on track with that and keep an idea in terms of actually what time is going on? So yeah, that's yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, finance and treasury.
Thank you, Chair. So similar to the first meeting, I've got the latest financial update that's gone to the executive board. So this went on the 20th of November, showing our latest budget outlook for the current year. You can see there that after the recommendation to set aside any surplus on the investment fund budget into an investment fund in our reserve, that there is a net surplus of 652,000 projected on the revenue budget. The investment fund budget itself, you can see on page 24, 5.7 million surplus there, and that's simply because plans are still in development to use that. And so the position may change by the year end. But whichever way you slice it, we are reserving the remainder of that fund for investment, and if we don't spend whatever amount remains unspent at the end of this financial year, we'll carry forward for future investment. The rest of the budget, you can see the main variances around employee costs, which have shown a bit of a surplus. around the staff turnover and appointment of the interim chief executive, so that's the slightly better position. And linked to the part of the report about treasury management, our investment income is overachieving by just short of 300,000 at the moment, and we've got a section on treasury management within this report in section 5 there to show that we are achieving an average rate of interest of 4.4%. We've earned £424,000 to date in cash balances, and we're projecting just over £800,000 interest by the year end. The other aspect of the report is the capital budget, and at the moment just simply sets out the capital budgets that are in place. All of those will be passported through to the constituent authorities, with the exception of the investment fund capital budget, which is just short of 4.7 million. And again, that is a fund that we would look to utilise largely in future years. So they're the main key points to the report, and then happy to take any questions.
Anybody?
I'm gonna ask a really simple and that question. Is this where we expect it to be? Does this compare favourably with other MCAs at this stage of their development?
I think the obvious caveat to make is that because the development of the organisation is accelerating at pace, and also we have largely interim staffing arrangements from agency staff, that there's some volatility there, isn't there, potentially? So in terms of the employee costs, which are the most significant operational costs you can see at the moment, that's where the numbers could change, but I'm not expecting anything particularly significant there. And we have a pretty stable staffing cohort now, and although we're going through these rounds of recruitment, those will be on most likely be on notice periods, and we're unlikely to see people coming into post until around March, April time. So I can't see any of that having a significant impact at this point. So no, I'm not expecting anything of significance there. Members' allowances are established. The corporate services SLAs are largely established now, and I'm not expecting the cost to significantly change there. Mayoral election costs is done with, which is the other main item of expenditure, and the operational costs are much more stable now. HEYCA's found a permanent premises, so I'm not expecting anything significant on the operational costs. And in terms of the investment programme, well, that depends on the progress of proposals into the investment board, those being approved and actually going into expenditure. I wouldn't expect there'll be a great deal of that by the year end. The rest of the investment programme, we are assuming that is all going to be either fully passported through to the constituent authorities, or spend. The community investment fund is one that's that is being worked through, and will we deploy all that £1 million by the end of the year? Probably not, but again, we would be looking to carry that forward into future years for that programme. So the assumption there is that it will be spent, but in reality that money falls into reserve. So I'm not expecting anything significant in terms of changes to this projection.
Thank you. Sorry. What is MHCLG?
Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All good from the information. It was really more of a vision, and as we go forward, it's clearly as this authority obviously progresses, the success is going to be based on the investment that we can attract, and therefore my question is, do we have somebody in place that is liaising with government to try and bring these investments forward? Because obviously those are important. And is there a game plan or a vision as we go forward in the next couple of years? Because obviously we're in a you know, it's at a very early stage at this point, and then so relatively low. But clearly that's where they all start. So it's early days. It's really that sort of vision. And do we have somebody in place who's actually actively involved in investment? It's really the best of all.
Yeah, I mean, we're already in talks with government every week. Only last week I got off the teams with Jason Stockford, the Minister of Investment. And there's a clear message being sent us for that we need one strong voice in this region that's fighting for every investment that's coming in. At the moment, it's very diluted and there's loads of balls everywhere. Everyone's saying their own little bit, where actually we all need to come together now and drive that one message with that one strong voice. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that are getting done. There's a couple of more votes on the board that's getting set up. And once we've got that grid structure correct for the boards, then everything will get channeled with the command authority. We've got that strong voice for investment. Yeah, makes government's life a lot easier. Give it with one voice and not one. At the moment, it's very down. So there's a lot of work to do behind the scenes to get everyone together to make sure that everything goes through for that village from now on.
Yes, yeah, no, I agree, and I understand that, but I think it's an amazingly positive picture that we get sort of develop going forward. It's really actually, you know, my knowledge, or my assumption is that we need sometimes specialists here to actually help, because you can't do it all yourself in terms of advisors. Yeah. So do we plan to recruit somebody that actually then has that ability to actually basically
Yes.
deliver that?
Yeah, basically, the command authority will have its own investment team. Obviously, we're looking, as soon as we bring in the director, we've got a director on the group, they will have their own team there, but also East Riding also shows really good things in what they've done, investment wise. So we're literally all working together at the moment, as well as Hull, Chris Jackson, the good things that they're doing. So we'll just tie everything together. But yeah, as soon as we get our director of economic growth, then it'll start planning out the team of what our internal team will look like.
Okay, Councillor Richardson.
Just a quick one, because it's only a year into this government, I've just gone. Is there a time from when these funds have got to be spent? The last government, they'd like to force you to do stuff quick.
Yeah, we've not got.
In the
Gen-
investment one, there isn't.
Generally, there isn't on the investment fund. Generally, you know, the transport funding, it will be fully deployed to the constituent authorities and from the existing arrangement. Things like the mineral renewables funds, that's for specific projects, and we have to take specific timescales and report back to government. Similar with the shared prosperity fund, there are milestones that need to be hit. But with no concern.
Everything's on track.
Yes, yeah, so we need to report back, but there's nothing that I'm concerned about in terms of deadlines and timescales and others.
Because that was the bane of a lot of projects in the last years of storage. Not as a part of the political thing, because I think there was a civil servant. And yeah.
But yeah, the projects that are coming in now, certain little projects, there'll be there's details around that saying it has to be spent on X amount, and then the local authorities, we will passport that over to them to make sure that some of them actually have been able to turn down the local authorities because they haven't got the capacity to deliver that project. So yeah, there's certain things around some, but most of the funding that's coming in now, there's no barriers around when it has to be spent, which is great.
It is.
Thank you. Yes.
Just quickly for Julian, it's capital budget. I'm trying to get my head around time budgets to go. Well, the capital budgets will be distributed to the constituent councils, and I know we're looking at 25/6, so I don't know if we've got neat figures, the constituent council's budget for 25/6. And do we have definite figures for following year yet?
Yeah, so when I updated the exec board on the 20th of November, I did say for this capital budget section, what we're looking to do before that when we do the next report is more detail around expenditure plans and expenditure by the broadcast from the constituent authority within those plans. So you'll see that in that.
Anybody else? Thank you very much for noting that report. Agenda item 6. Combined offer constitution. If Gus recommendations fair to 2.1, the governance audit committee agreed to establish a constitutional review working group. What will you imagine in that will look like? And we know how many members, because obviously that's come from somewhere, it's come from.
That's the chair. So the first thing to say, it seems a bit obtuse, having a paper about review of the constitution that's only in a month's time. But as we saw earlier, and when we discussed the course of the political system, the review of the constitution is ongoing. So therefore, I believe this paper that was before you those recommendations. What I envisage with respect to recommendation 2.1 is to get a small group to work with
From within this committee.
from within this committee of ideally one member from each constituent council to have oversight on and be engaged in the detailed work of constitutional review. And appreciate that it's not the most exciting and thrilling jobs, but it's actually really important for them. And so I was hoping that members of this committee would embrace it with the level of enthusiasm I do. At least one of each constituent council would seek to get involved and report regularly as need be, prior to formal changes to the constitution going through the rules of governance. But I wanted to really get this out there to emphasise the point that the constitution is living documents and almost always in the perpetual review, and to do that with members, obviously, as opposed to do it to.
Any thoughts, members?
Michael, you well versed in the constitution.
Having friends.
I'm assuming I'm going to be volunteer from what they would. Well, I'm saying if depending on the amount of commitment, I will have to volunteer. Depends on meetings. What's the pay? I'll do it at 10,000. Yeah, I'd be happy on that. 2 or 3 meetings, documentation, fine with that. More than that, yes, I would.
Yeah, small dark room, except it's wide.
I mean, unless anybody's got any objections, my thoughts on the process would be, if I am still chair on this one, still vote, then I would imagine that should be as well. Yeah. So we'd be happy with 3. I know that's 2 from full, one from me, as you know, and I'm more than happy to object, and take off it. But I think I should be there. Yes, okay. Are we all happy with the 3? Yeah. Are we looking at it now? So I'm sure members have picked up in constitutional. You want to take it from across the floor now? Are you happy with that?
If members have got immediate issues, begin to have a take down and view it piecemeal, whichever way suits you. Yeah.
Can you say some of the process? So there's some ongoing, so are you going to take it to the board to ratify the changes on an annual basis, is that plan, or is it on that person when changes occur?
At least on the Chair, next question, and there's a degree of proportionality, because equal set of changes of such significance to the proportion of an announcement way, then do that, but if it's not, perhaps
Let's move on to the right from 7 have a look. And we've got things to do.
think we're not careful if we are going through it and then jumping from page to page, backwards and forwards. What I would suggest is potentially some work from page at a time. Work through that, we'll be happy with that. Anything on the page.
Just so everyone's absolutely clear, so the constitution is not within this pack, there is a link to it. So I can send this from the beginning. So we know it.
It's online as well.
Yeah.
Can I say what comes on?
No, I've got to get back to another meeting.
No, you still also ask them, would any suggested changes come through this committee and onto the board? In other words, it gets presented, so does the scope from come through this committee for section then?
Just was surprised that the anything is particularly urgent, we can vote online. Just that it doesn't, we're not tired, you know.
I would imagine it would be coming to a meeting, that's right, that meeting. And I can't imagine really from that age, not the constitution, if it is, I would imagine it goes to the board and not listen. And for any age, it's 13 constitution, that reflects. I don't think there's anything absolutely urgent.
Yes, that would be, Chair, that we could also, if it was, I imagine what this might be from that example, but if there were such a thing, it was so urgent, and we easily, you could be on extraordinary, you know, this. I can't think of an example of what that might be like that.
Are we allowed to convene on Teams?
No, Chair, that's the new chair was spoken, you have to get your vote to take back. Obviously, the members aware that was all actually with COVID, that the restated that stipulation.
I'll add on to 7. Thank you. So page 35 of 90, introduction, anybody got anything on that? Next 6. Next 7. Nobody else is that. One from in the second paragraph from 1.3, it's all updated with the approved by the HEYCA. We should that should say HEYCA board. Yeah. Anything else on 37? This is program, see, I think we've heard of the Phillips there, but I've got 1 point left to go. Page 39. Fourth thing. I'm sure we're not thinking spelling mistakes. I'm worried. So if we are, it's just that 4th line on the top on page 40 says the list of employment with no employment and for employment, so we are in that style. You have read it. I have read it. Page I'll say 11 on that, so it's page 11 on the. Sorry. Yeah. Are we on page?
Sorry, no, it's the way I've read it, I think. It's that real one, the second paragraph on page 40.
Yep.
Is it real commerce or is it just real manufacturing? It could be. Given the Siemens factory. Could be. But it seems very specific kind of type of manufacturing just for. Look at into, we could see what.
Yeah, and that's what optical cameras are a good thing. I'll just set that down.
Such as.
Such as,
Yeah.
it's an example industry, isn't it? I don't know.
I think it's a developed list.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, rail manufacturing costs, that's one big one.
Yeah, mine should be because it's still.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I was saying.
Spelling mistake and being real manufacturer.
Sorry, it was just a quick one.
Yeah, page what's 160 over 90? Bottom two, oh, sorry.
No, 42. No, I'm-
Bottom two.
Oh, sorry.
Bottom two.
Okay, so just looking at the portfolio holders and the structure there. There is a constitutional requirement, to my understanding, that the NAS would want to deputy NAS. So where are we with that, and what timescales, what steps to that? Is the board for this one?
Yeah. The council really is quite right, Chair, that the depth in there is contained within the constitution. And obviously, adoption now is not yet been appointed. But it was not the most straightforward process to identify the security agreement of and that deputy. Now, obviously, it is an ongoing process. And unfortunately, now I'm not able to be brought in the process of being completed, but the officers are aware that it's there, that it is in the constitution, and therefore, expectation that it will be completed as soon as it's able to do so.
Is there a time frame where it has to be concluded, or is it?
What is it?
As is the case?
And Chair, the time frame is as soon as it's reasonably possible taken everything to that, it's not restrict by such and such a date. But obviously, the reasonable expectation is that the steps are taken to conform to the constitution, which would start and indeed all respects. And those steps are being taken. Unfortunately, we're not able to ensure that the process has been not really that's it.
Is that a position within alliance, or is it just a level position?
And I believe that's my roots, not the other. Got it, thank you, come back. Alright, so. The issue about the constitution. Okay, on that as soon as anything, just on technical.
43. 44. 45. 46. 47. 48. 49. 50. One. Go on, make Austin.
Well, I'm only jumping ahead of you, I think, for I see you was there, right on. I think we're looking at the general requirement again, there is to get the, so it's obviously incorrect, you don't know if we agree otherwise. So, if it is the case that they are, with that, or in the name, see,
Don't know who's the annual we will contend with that.
Ah, okay, well, in that case, I'll throw that back up for a second.
So, obviously the committee's named on there, though, that's about right. I mean, I'm not sure with. Because obviously if we don't have one, does that mean the meeting doesn't go ahead? So if we are having an independent chair, when that person arrives in place, that's why the change should be. Is everybody happy with that?
There is an expectation that chair be an independent
Yeah.
member.
Yeah. But if we don't have one, we can't, we just wouldn't be able to.
Not to do people business.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, as I understood it, I know, I did, watch the briefing when the board decided the position. It wasn't mentioned at that meeting, in other words, there wasn't any discussion like that, that it made it otherwise, such a sensitive decision they had taken, so it seems a bit after the event at this point, it doesn't seem very clever, but we've got to review that. Is that something that we could look at, is if it makes sense in the constitutional review, so sort of give it that, or is that? Or is it a statutory requirement?
So, Chair, there's a couple of things from Yeah, first of all, it is currently sort of best practice, it isn't going to be done. Secondly, we have, in the middle of attempts at recruiting an independent member, and to say that it lacks straightforwardness is somewhat of an understatement. It may be that recruitment of an independent member would be less difficult if you did not have the chair attached to it, or didn't have the chair attached to it immediately. And so it may make sense, in order to get an independent member co-opted, to be perhaps a little bit more flexible about that and not expect that person to immediately take the chair. Certainly, while we have got an independent member, we have to continue business as we are doing. So the arrangements for the chair need to stay as they are, at least until we've got an independent member co-opted who is prepared to take the chair. Appreciate that's not an ideal set of circumstances, but unfortunately we asked.
I think that sounds solid, that sounds very sensible. Someone who's not being, as a councillor or in role or something, right, and then an independent member who's also the chair. Yeah, it seems like a big, it does seem to extend, that is a barrier to recruitment as well.
So would be happy to change the way something like should be, and then obviously, if it comes to, you would like it to take it over, however, if you want to wait for 2 months, 6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 weeks, whatever, we could maybe have it as that. So
I'm genuinely not precious to either way, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm slightly surprised that an unelected would be the chair, if I'm honest. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. The expectation of someone to just be appointed and then they're chair, as opposed to somebody who is actually elected.
But if I may say, that it is part of the constitution, and we are bound by it, we cannot change it until a decision is made to take the constitution. So admittedly, we have to be flexible and carry on with the meetings in the meantime. But if we need to, if somebody needs to make a decision to either say, yes, we're content with carrying on as we are, or change the constitution, it's got to be, obviously, on it to do, not just leave it. Don't think about it.
Councillor Richmond?
I think the constitution needs to add a paragraph to say that in the event of an independent not standing, other members of committee being quorum 7/8, and I think we should go that step for this, but we'll elect chair. Well, yeah. So that it just doesn't stop.
No, absolutely.
Councillor Kent?
How do we handle this at home? 'Cause obviously we've been without our independent chair for a few years.
Exactly the same as the
Same thing.
it's not a requirement, it's advisable. And I think the advice is actually to have 2 independent members on the audit committee, ideally.
My opinion on that is that, this is meant to be non-political. And if your chair is a member of the party and elected to represent, then the chair could have influence on elsewhere.
Yeah.
And of course, when you consider the elsewhere includes the reasons in our individual events.
Yeah.
I would definitely prefer an independent chair.
Well,
And I know that's but I'd like to, personally, I think it should be the constitution as it stands. It's obviously counted from the independent chair and we don't have an independent member. But as soon as we have 1 or 2 independent members, however that's going to work out in the long term, but yes, ideally, within the chair, and does the chair has a passing vote in this effectively? No.
Well,
The way it's done in Holland, the fact that the chair is so we have got an independent chair of audit, we're going to have non-votes and
In his driving, we don't have that requirement, we don't have that. It's not our constitution, it forces to have one, although we have discussed it on numerous occasions. So obviously we by the advice we get.
we're just doing it by SIP's recommendation, because they recommend to.
That's a good change. Can I suggest this is something you work to do?
Thank you.
But I would recommend that second paragraph, just the health and person.
I think if it's a barrier to somebody taking the role, then that's what we need to think about it seriously. As a person, I'd rather have somebody that was independent here, and potentially taking over the chair in 2 or 3 meetings if that was possible, rather than not having an independent man at all. So, yeah. Thank you. All right, let's crack on. So that's page 51.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, it's on page
I didn't see
51, Chair, sorry, I didn't find it. Not on page 51. Under it's just a floor plate, 4.9. The internal audit refers to public section internal audit kind of stuff. It's now global internal audit standards. Just in terms of there's wording of the culture of nine parts that maybe which is top internal audit work has been based to comply with global internal audit. And all of the guidance recommended for UK public effects are relevant in internal audit.
I understand that too.
Yeah, instead of public sector internal audit.
Yeah.
Just as widow, the word, to be awake for.
Thank you, that was 51. And moving to 52. 3. 54. 5. 6. Yeah, councillor Lee.
It was essentially just a general point on all of the respective subjects, like this and allowing to oversee diversity inclusion. Is there a program to develop agreed policy documents and all of this? Because that's quite a big couple. So it's something obviously is
That's been handed to the consultation with council, so that's us work with signal.
so policies.
I'm very kidding.
And companies like take over too seriously.
Anybody ready to receive that?
So in the last couple of reports, we have been those instruction advanced the policy plan and getting a number of policies and to remedy the fact that policy plan will include some of our policy plans in the constitution that will be looked at by the constitution working group, but other policies that are standing policies on the process of being developed, and those include standard regional policies that we expect to see chair of our scrutiny committee is aware and the levels included the certain include a review of the policy plan as well. So we have actually actually on the policy plan again.
Perfect. I was only going to make a point if I can, Chair, that obviously there are good established policies in the councils. So I think we've got to start on all of those, and then, for example, trying I mentioned that. For example, on equality, including this student. So in a way, I can reinvent this.
Yes, maybe let me something there.
Sorry, I was just going to just note, and I'll get in the audit plan, there is vision and specifically under putting context map page part. Broad baseline assessment will be looked at section on.
Thank you, Chair. When members look at the policies, and they may find themselves looking at not entirely familiar.
Can I just say, I think I speak on behalf of the team, you contain your excitement. Delivery out of so that's page 56. Anything else on 56? 57? 58? 59? Again, sorry, 59.
it has 28 days before a key decision statement is published. That seems a long reading.
It's just sort of following plan, rather than repeat central decision, so. Yeah, we'll bring that to our density board, so that there's notification in advance of what key decisions will be to the community centre, which will be at least a month in advance, rather than detail.
And in before, I'm assuming to say when people see it, expect it to be made anyway.
Just notice, worried about the ability to react to government policy. And that's.
Okay. What will be in place as a procedure around when we need to make a decision. So that will be made clear at the executive board meeting when the key decision, if not in the board plan. And it would be part of the public debate.
Won't be informed of that, would schools have been informed of that is happening?
Yes, so the
As the show will be calling process, before that.
yeah, okay.
Helping that rather.
I still think the more important bit is the calling period rather than giving somebody 28 days to review it before making some decision. If you're happy with it, I'll stick with it. Just want to make sure that the authorities are agile.
Chair, the full plan of key decisions, so both centuries, 20 of the days mean, is the same meaning that both articles use. Wherever possible, we consider it good practice to give members of the public as much notice of the decisions that are going to be made. So that's the reference to up to 6 months in advance. Wherever possible, we'll give as much notice of the decisions as possible, and we will have, although we really do have, sufficient management processes to deal with urgent key decisions in a legally compliant manner.
Okay, so long as it doesn't stop us, because we've all had governments who just say, we've got a month to bid for something, and all of a sudden, yeah.
I believe that if members of this committee expect the way that we would, as HEYCA deal with urgent key decisions, you would then not find yourself with things that you're not going to leave it. Okay. No, that's fine.
So that was 59, anything else on 59? 60. 61. 2. 3. 64. 65. 66. 7. 68. 69. 70. 71. 72. 73. 74. 75. 76. 77. 78. 79. 80. 81. 82. On 82, I'm assuming we can just remember the Chamber of Commerce in there. The last underlying bullet point is a local skills implementation plan. That should be local skills improvement plan. The also is completed. Anything else on 82? 83. 84. 85. 86. 87. 88. Last two lines. And then anybody on the bottom of the 10.
How much CLG was that?
Has anybody got anything they want to bring up at this point? I know we don't have any other business on the agenda. Anything else that we want to use for the plan? Thank you very much. Everybody have a lovely festive period, if that's your ways to celebrate it. Have a nice December.
Okay.